Today, former legal advisor of former President Donald Trump, Sidney Powell, took a plea deal in the Georgia racketeering case. Her trial was to begin tomorrow, but in a last-minute turnaround, she negotiated a deal, thus avoiding facing a jury to determine her fate. Powell will plead guilty, or did plead guilty, to 6 misdemeanors of conspiracy to commit intentional interference with the 2020 election. In exchange for the plea, Powell faces no jail time, will pay a $6,000 fine, $2,700 in restitution, write an apology letter to the people of the state of Georgia, and serve 6 years of probation. Also as part of the deal, Powell agreed to testify against the other defendants should she have testimony that the prosecution wants and they believe is relevant. She is also required to hand over any relevant documents. Powell is the second of Trump's 18 co-defendants in the Georgia racketeering case to accept a plea deal. The first co-defendant to accept a plea offer and agree to testify was bail bondsman Scott Hall. Former federal prosecutor, former assistant DA in Cobb County, Georgia, Francey Hakes joins me, as well as former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Alabama, J-Town. Francey, first to you. I think she's got a great deal. Anytime you can get a deal for your client where it doesn't involve jail time, you take it and run. Your thought?
Well, you're right about that, Greta. What strikes me is that Fani Willis announced this case like it's the crime of the century, RICO, racketeering. This is something so serious, trying to subvert our very democracy. And yet she pleads guilty to misdemeanors. That's not a felony, by the way. That's just a misdemeanor. She might even be able to keep her law license with a misdemeanor conviction. And it seems to me that if you've got a strong racketeering case and the first 2 defendants out of the gate are pleading guilty to misdemeanors, you do not, in fact, have a strong racketeering case, because you want to set that example and scare the other defendants into pleading guilty by showing what strong evidence of those main felony charges that you have. But instead of 20 years in jail, she's got 12 months probation consecutively.
And I guess, Jay, in looking at it, I mean, if she's the testimony is one of the things that she's agreed to provide. I don't know if she has testimony that's valuable to the prosecution or not, but if she gets on the witness stand and does have testimony and testifies against any of the other 17 or whatever, 8 co-defendants, the first thing the defense's lawyer is going to say, boy, you got to get out of jail free card after this terrible indictment that Francey just talked about. So you better, so he's going to make the witness look like, will say anything on the witness stand because the person got freedom.
Well, and that would be a typical tactic. She was mentioned 28 times in the indictment. But honestly, when you read the indictment, if you just read it sort of like a story, Sidney Powell's role was very small. It was almost entirely related. All 6 of the counts were related to the Coffee County Dominion voting machines and her getting her hands on the actual information that was in those machines so she could send it and have it forensically evaluated. It really didn't have anything to do with the RICO conspiracy or the fake electors or the like. So she's not like a super compelling witness about this big conspiracy to get fake electors before the Congress on January 6th. So I don't even know that she's going to even have to leave the conditioned air of her home at any point.
You know what I actually like about this plea and the last one? You both probably going to think that it's silly of me. I sort of like the concept where the person who pleads guilty to committing a crime has to write an apology to the people. I mean, I've never seen that. Francey, is that something they do routine in Georgia? But if you violate the law and you've offended the people, maybe you think it's hokey, but I sort of like the idea.
Manners are important to us here in Georgia, but I don't think I've ever seen the idea of an apology letter. I think it's interesting about the truthful testimony, and you're so right, Greta, about the defense and the way they'll attack that, because they're going to say that she has a huge incentive now to inculpate the other co-defendants because she got such a great deal.
Jay, the apology letter, you're from the South, too. I'm from the North, and we don't usually do those apology letters, maybe. But have you ever seen that before?
I've not. And, what if it's strongly worded? Maybe that's real punishment, right? That's this case. You've indicted the former president of the United States. I've never given 6 misdemeanor pleas when I charged 6 felonies in a 19-defendant indictment. That's embarrassing. That would be embarrassing to the prosecutor. Fani Willis has no shame. I don't think she really knows what she's doing anyway. So this makes total sense. And if I'm Sidney Powell, I can understand taking this deal. But yeah.
Yeah. I will say this, though, is that if I'm looking forward to seeing if the apology says, I'm sorry if I offended you or not. I mean, I do want to see how I do want to see how this is written, because I don't know in the plea deal if there's any sort of requirements. Anyway, Francey, Hakes, J-Town, thank you both.
Thanks, Greta.